Welcome back to another episode of Science Unplugged. We're coming here from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook University. And we're a show where we like to sit down with a scientist and have a nice conversation and learn some science. So I'm Stephen, I'll be one of your hosts, and I'm here with another host, Wendy. And we've got a great guest, right, Wendy?
So today we have Ruiz, who's going to talk to us about cancer metabolism. So let's go straight into it. So what is cancer metabolism and why is it important to study?
Thank you, Steve and Wendy, for having me. So I study cancer metabolism, and it's important because it's well established now in the field that tumors have very different metabolism from healthy tissue in our body. And so it's important to ask why that is and how we can exploit those differences for therapy.
So how is it different? That's probably...
Yeah, so actually cancer metabolism is really old. It's been around for the field has been studied for about 100 years or so. And it started with the scientist Otto Warburg, who first noticed that tumor cells, when you grow them in a dish, love to eat sugar. They love it. And even further than that, so the regular, normal, healthy tissues in our body will eat sugar too, but we'll use most of that sugar to make energy. Right? And that's why we need to breathe in oxygen, so that we can combine the sugar and the oxygen to make energy. However, what the scientists noticed over 100 years ago that was really interesting is that cancer cells, irregardless if there's oxygen present or not, love to take in an enormous amount of sugar and will not use, they don't care about the oxygen. They will not use that sugar and the oxygen together to make energy.
So I've got sort of a sort of silly question, but I'm not a biologist by any stretch of the imagination. So when you say cancer metabolism and cancer eats, can you sort of unpack that for me? So I think of metabolism as like something I'm used to hearing about as like for a whole person. Like what do you mean? So does cancer actually eat? What do you mean
Yes,
by that?
so it's really interesting because so you can think of a single, so tumors are made up of a bunch of cancer cells. And so you can think of a single cancer cell as at one point in its life, it was a healthy cell in your body. And at some point, it became rogue, it became sick. And when I say I study cancer metabolism, is one of the characteristics that we see across different tumors is that when a healthy cell becomes a cancer cell, one of the things that it does is that it doesn't listen to the body anymore. So none of the cells in our body are autonomous when it comes to eating. They don't eat when they want to. They eat when they're told to. Right? So you can imagine...
Who's telling them to eat? What does cancer just eat whenever they want?
So most of the cells in your body will eat when, say, you're hungry. So when you're hungry, your brain will, tell the rest of your body. You'll release certain hormones, and it'll signal to the organs in your body, hey, it's time to eat. It's going to tell you to eat, so you're going to take in food, and then the food will be absorbed from your bloodstream. A cancer cell uniquely doesn't care about those signals and doesn't listen to the body. It will, if there's food present, like say there's food in the bloodstream, it will take up that food and it will eat it. So it gives it a selective advantage over healthy cells.
And selective advantage, I'm getting the sense that selective advantage kind of seems positive. I'm getting the sense that that's not a positive thing, right?
Definitely not positive for the patient, for the host, unfortunately. But again, you could think of a cancer cell as a rogue cell that thinks for itself. It's very positive for a cancer cell itself to think that way, to not need permission anymore from the rest of the body, because then it'll grow. It'll take up all the resources itself. And any cell, or most cells, when they grow, they eventually divide. They split up into two. And then now you have two cells, and those two cells will go on to do the same thing. And so that's what I mean by selective advantage.
Okay.
So how do you study and how can we use it to treat cancer?
So metabolism overall is very broad, as you said. And there's many different areas to study. I personally study fats, and I study it in lung cancer. And so lung cancer is the most highly diagnosed cancer type out there.
Really?
Yeah, it has the highest number of cancer patients. And it actually, unfortunately, also has poor prognosis associated with it. But I believe if you look at the statistics, 14% survival rate after 5 years of patients. So after 5 years of diagnosis, about 14% of patients are alive. And so, as I said, I study fats in the lung. And so my research, what it sees, what we've seen, is that cancer cells love to make fat. So they'll eat glucose to make more fat, to help them. And fat normally in our cells will help with, signaling, so talking to each other. It'll help with making more cells. It'll give you more energy and things of that nature.
Okay. So so lung cancer specifically, I'm sorry if I missed it. So they like to make fats. Do all cancer cells like to make fats, or is just that specific cancer?
Yeah. So the process of making fat, and I don't want to upset the police, but it's called lipogenesis, right? But
Oh yeah,
What was it?
that's a definite jargon, please.
Yes, but
say it again a little slower. So
lipogenesis.
Lipogenesis,
And what
okay.
that simply means is just creation of fat. You're
Okay.
making fat. What's again, this is an example of cancer metabolism, why it exists, and why we study it. So most cells in your body actually don't make their own fat. They eat it from your food. So they take it from your bloodstream. Cancer cells, they actually are able now again to make their own fat. And I say again because when a cell when it originates from a baby cell, it has the ability to make its own fat to survive.
So that's one of the critical differences between a cancer cell and a regular cell, is that it will make its own fat?
Among many things,
Okay.
but that's something that you see across many. Again, fat creation is something that you see across many cancers. And
So then if you could figure out some way to get the cancer cell to not make its own fat, would that be a way to try and cure the cancer? Or
Well,
is that
so-
one avenue you could explore?
yeah, so in the research that I do, we see that certain cells, certain cancer cells, are addicted to making fat, to the fat that they make. And so if you inhibit, this process, you see that the cancer cells that are addicted to this fat creation are killed. And while you throw this drug into not just other normal cells, but other cancer cells that are not addicted to fat creation, they're not as effective. So it's a very selective.
Oh,
Do they
that's really
eat back that fat, or they use that fat for energy to make more like cancer cells?
So that's actually a very interesting question. That's what's being studied right now. So when you make fat, again, it's definitely used to make more cells. You need, again, if you're a tumor and you want to grow, right? We all think of a tumor as cells that don't stop dividing. You need more mass to make more of yourself, and lipids make a lot. They contribute to the mass of cells. Mm-hmm.
So is your work more on the basic research side of this, or are you working in a clinical way, or what is it that you're actually doing in the lab to sort of get?
Of course. So I take my model. What I work with is lung cancer cells, and so I take them and I study, and they're all cancer cells, and I study their ability to create fat. And I do this so I can isolate the fats, and the fats are called lipids, hence lipogenesis, the word. And I isolate their fats, and I'm able to see not just how much fat they're making, but what they're using to make that fat. And so I can see if they prefer sugar, or cells also love to eat what makes up proteins, which are amino acids. That's what makes up proteins. If what exactly, what are they using to make these fats? And so that gives me, okay, so say what I study and what I see is that these cancer cells are using sugar to make more fat. So if I inhibit their ability to use that sugar to make fat, then I see that, and when I throw the drug into culture with these cells, I see that there's a lot of cell death.
So then what can we do with the knowledge that you're getting in the lab? What's the point? Why are you doing these experiments?
Right. So I mean, long term is you want you want what's called targeted therapy, right? So if you have a patient that has lung cancer, you don't want to just throw regular chemotherapy on them, which most chemotherapy nowadays, what it does is that it targets fast proliferating cells, and that doesn't discriminate very well, because that can attack normal cells in our body. Again, a skin cell,
Is that why people lose their hair when they're on chemo?
yes, because our hair cells are proliferating those.
So for the process that's making fats, so is that process like in other like regular cells too? So if you have targeted therapy, how do you like target that one specific?
So remember what I said. Most of the cells in our body don't make their fat
Okay.
anymore. They take it up from the bloodstream. So the idea here is you can target cells that are making their own fat. And again, it's targeted. So if you say you have a patient with a lung tumor, you would hit the tumor with the therapy. And as I said, is what we see in culture is that cells that are addicted to making fat are the ones that are are the ones that are dying. Ooh, and if I could add,
Go
we've
for it.
done this in mice too.
Oh, okay.
So when we took mice, and so nowadays there's lots of models for cancer in mice. That is, you can give a mouse cancer very easy. It's not hard. So you take a mouse and you give it lung cancer, and then we treat
It's
it,
kind of scary.
and then we treat it with an inhibitor, so something that blocks fat creation. Half of our mice did not develop tumors.
Oh, that's
Oh, wow.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like this is a pretty promising potential new way to treat cancer then, right?
Yeah, just targeting metabolism in general is, and this is not that new. I mean, it's gotten a lot of hype over the last few years, but there are drugs already out there that are used. Patients that suffer from ALL, acute lymphoblastic lymphoma, a very standard therapy that they get is an enzyme called asparaginase. It's an enzyme, and very simply it's another pathway, another metabolic pathway inside that tumor that is altered, that changes. And so the scientists saw that, they targeted that pathway with this drug, and now it's standard treatment for people that suffer from ALL.
So is then your goal to sort of do that for lung cancer, whereas like, is it your goal to like come up with a new way to treat lung cancer? Or what would be your ideal,
So in terms of, I do basic research. I like basic research. So I like to study how metabolism is changing inside these cancer cells, but there's also what we call translational research.
Yeah.
That is, you don't want to just study things for the sake of it. You want to, help
Bring it to
humanity. So in terms of that aspect, yes, long term, you definitely want to identify these pathways and then target them with these drugs, and then go into clinical trials. You have to go into clinical trials.
So what stage are you at right now in terms of the basic research to the translational research?
So personally, my thesis is on this, so I am trying to get the paper published
Okay.
right now. That's where we're at. We're submitting the paper to journals
That's
to
awesome.
get this information
Cool.
out. Yes.
So we got the science. So what actually do you love the most about what you do?
I love to study cancer because, again, as I told you, I think cancer is very. I mean, it's a very heartbreaking thing. You never want. I mean, it's an awful thing. But just with regards to the science, I think cancer is very interesting because, again, you take a cell that grew up in this environment where it's like a soldier. It takes orders, and there are rules. If I can give you one more example,
Sure.
the cells in our body are so well in line with them, like, so they will take orders no matter what. They're so loyal that they will kill themselves. They will commit suicide if they're sick or if something goes wrong. And this is what happens most of the time because we don't all have cancer, right?
Yeah.
So this is what happens most of the time when the possibility of cancer arises. If a cell sees that it's broken, it will kill itself. It's called programmed cell death, so suicide. That's how loyal cells are, and it's very interesting to see how in nature you just have these something happens and all of a sudden the cell could think for itself and it becomes very selfish, and then how it's able to just change everything. And I think that's, to me, is very interesting. I love to see that.
Cool.
And we're going to take a quick break from the science to see if you know something outside of science.
Yeah, because you
So,
spent the last
yeah.
couple minutes, you're
Yeah.
clearly a very capable scientist.
Yeah, very enthusiastic and intense. So now
So
let's.
now, what do you know
let's-
about non-science?
All right.
Ready
so
for this?
Ready for the first question?
Okay.
All right. So you can answer it too, Stephen. So which Hollywood couple who had announced their separation back in June 2015 have now called off their divorce to give it another go?
You're on your own for this
Which
one.
one?
I have no
Couple
idea.
that-
They're kind of popular.
Is it J-Lo and Mark Anthony?
No, I think that was older. So you guys want to give it another try? Another couple?
Another couple, a Hollywood couple that announced that they're gonna give it another shot. I don't know. Not Brad Pitt.
Angelina
Not
Jolie.
No,
Brad
no,
Pitt.
that was the other time. Okay, so it's actually Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck.
Oh yes.
Oh, I did
Batman.
know that.
It's
Yeah,
Yes,
no, I
Batman.
did know that.
All right, second question. Who wrote, produced, and directed the 2017 American satirical horror film Get Out?
Oh, the guy from Michael. Is it Mike? No, the guy from the show, the comedy sketch show.
Yes.
I know his name. I can't remember.
Last
right now.
name?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Key and Peele.
Yes. Which one? Which one is it?
Peele.
Yes. Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice.
So okay, good. So we have one out of five. All
Okay.
right, number 3. Which two films were involved in the Oscars blunder for the Academy Award for Best Picture? You guys know this, right?
Oh, I definitely know the one. Oh my God, I know the one that was mistaken.
All right, which one was that?
The one with Emma Stone and
It's like
Ryan Gosling.
Want a hint?
You
Yeah.
can
What's the hint?
California.
No, I forgot the name.
That's the hint. La La Land.
La La Land.
And what's
okay.
the one that should have?
Moonshine?
Moonlight?
Moonlight.
Moonlight,
Yes, so you got part of it. It's good. You guys work as a team.
Okay.
Number 4. At a Disney shareholders meeting, Luke Skywalker's long-awaited first words in the movie Star Wars: The Last Jedi were revealed to be what?
That I have no idea.
I really should know this. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I purposefully
Just
have
put
not.
yourself in the scene.
I've purposely blocked out anything about the next movie because I want to wait till it comes out. So
You
I
wanna
have
take a
no
stab
idea.
at it?
Wait,
or-
so it's the first words he said in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, The Last Jedi.
The last.
It's the new movie coming out.
Oh. I don't know.
It's okay. So it's actually Who Are You?
Oh, that
So
makes
that's
sense.
kind of
Oh, because
like a-
to his
No
daughter.
spoilers,
No,
Wendy.
okay, no more, no
Okay.
more. That's it. So number 5, last question. This, I'm sorry, is a really hard question. I don't know if I should have thrown this one in. Barcelona completed the greatest comeback in Champions League history with a dramatic 95-minute goal against which team?
PSG, but I don't know what it stands for.
That's okay. That's actually, I didn't know the answer to this. It's actually, yeah, Paris Saint-Germain, if I'm pronouncing
Yeah.
it
That's them.
properly. So
I saw
that was
the
pretty
highlights.
good.
Yeah.
Impressive. Good
So
job.
you prove that you actually outside world, you guys, you go out to it. So and brings us to like the last part of like what's the whole point of this episode and this whole series is what is communicating science to you and why is it important?
Communicating science to me is to have the ability to communicate your science. I mean, you know, like what I said before, what I do, I think is really cool and really important, but it kind of takes away from it if I can't convey that message to other people. And I think especially in these times, it's extremely important with, you know, just in terms of the political arena that we're in right now, and there seems to be this anti-scientific sentiment out there, and so I think it's very important for us as scientists to make all these cool discoveries, but know how to convey it to everybody, because we have to appreciate that not everybody else is a scientist.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And that's a really good way to end. And I think on that note, we'll say thank you for watching. And once again, we're Science Unplugged from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. Feel free to check out our other videos, and we'll have some more soon. And keep doing science.